has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the rope. Goodbye, home run. Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. It's a
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 125. Glad to be here. Lots of baseball to talk about, so let's get it going.
Of course, we're here, and we're only a few days away from Christmas. And, of course, you guys see the art for the episode, put a little festive spirit in there. And like Devin said, we're right in the mix of all the news breaking. We got some good stuff this morning. We got stuff in between the episodes, but luckily we've been posting some of the content on Twitter and on Instagram. You guys can follow us at Tablesetters Pod to keep up with all the content because we don't know when news is going to drop. We just got news that a trade just happened a couple minutes ago as before we were going live. That's kind of the pace of the offseason thus far.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Not a big warning. I mean, the Murakami stuff, which we're going to talk about pretty early in the episode, I feel like 24 hours before it happened, we did get a little bit of a warning, but no one really believed it. And now the trades especially seemed like they can pop up out of nowhere. It is trade central this offseason. It's fun, man. Some of these are very strange, kind of out of the blue, weird matches. I'm all for it, man, keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like we aren't done quite yet. Of course, the big fish are yet to come out and sign free agents wise, but you mentioned the trades. It feels like we're on the precipice of something different. We'll talk about the Rays and what they're doing. It also feels like they're making room for a bigger deal. They're stockpiling, and the offseason a little bit, it moves in a weird pace, and every offseason has its own rhythm, and this one feels unique. And like you said before, I don't know if it has any rhyme or reason right now. I think some of these puzzle pieces do fit together, but some of the pieces feel like it's just random, and like whenever it makes sense, it happens and it drops.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, listen, like I said, the trade market just seems to be super active, and that was the word from honestly before the winter meetings. Lots of stuff was out there saying, listen, these GMs are going to tap out the trade market before they really dive into some of the biggest fish out there. So the Kyle Tuckers of the world, the Alex Bregmans of the world, the Framber Valdezes of the world. It seems like we're kind of waiting until these guys feel like, you know what, the trade market really is done. We got to take a look at these guys. But the other thing that I find interesting is we saw one example of it today, and I think it might be more of a trend than anything else, where there was all these rumors, obviously, at the beginning of the offseason about how long these deals would be, and a lot of long deals, like projected for 7 years, projected for 8 years, 6 years, whether it be Tucker or Framber, like we mentioned, or Cody Bellinger. I wonder if those marks actually don't get hit and we start to see more of these shorter term, high AAV deals as these guys wait to see what's out there. I mean, if the big market clubs are not willing to go to those long-term deals, for example, the Mets seem very unwilling to do that kind of stuff. If there's a few other big market teams that feel the same way, I think we are going to see, for example, a Framber Valdez maybe settle for something more like 4 or 5 years at a pretty nice high AAV instead of a 7 years, which he was rumored for as the offseason got started. So very unpredictable, but as a baseball fan, a baseball follower, someone who covers the game, kind of fun.
So you mentioned the AAV and the deals and trying to predict what they are. We had a deal that went down this morning. You mentioned the murmurs that were happening before the Murakami news dropped, but it was official with Jeff Passan getting this news here. 2 years, $34 million to the Chicago White Sox. They're going to be moving him from third base to first base. He's going to be formally introduced with the club on Monday. We talked a lot about this really throughout our episode with Jim Allen. We had a conversation about what he brings to the table. We all know the power could be prolific. A lot of the holes in the swing, it's swing and miss that's concerning. The contact rate, I mentioned the reel we posted at Tablesetters Pod. A lot of the concern was the contact rate. If it was to translate directly to Major League Baseball, it would be in the bottom 4 of Major League Baseball as far as that goes. And that's very concerning, which is why the original projection we saw all over the place, not just one unit or one outlet putting this out there, 8 years, $180 million, completely off the mark. He goes there 2 year, $34 million deal. This is a prove it deal. He'll be a free agent when he turns 28, and we'll see exactly where he can go. So they're going to go exactly where it is. And no one had on their bingo card the Chicago White Sox having them there. And at least this offense, we'll talk about Kyle Teal and Colson Montgomery and Miguel Vargas, Chase Meathroth. And this is an exciting offense. Not that they're going to be competitive, but there's a lot to look forward to. I mean, at least you can be excited as a Chicago fan to go to the ballpark.
Well, that's what I was going to say. At the very least, this is someone to go watch, to check out, and it might get some different fans in the building. I mean, we know Japanese baseball fans follow their players closely, so you may have a bigger fan base there as well. And that's kind of cool because we know how much they've flocked to the Dodgers. You know, Dodgers games on everywhere in Japan, from what we've heard. The White Sox might get a little international love here, and I think any positive step you can take if you're the Chicago White Sox franchise is a big deal right now for what they're doing. They have infused their team with youth. And let's be honest, even though this was a big free agent name, we're used to big free agent names being kind of like veterans. This is a young guy. This is the perfect kind of fit for a free agent for the Chicago White Sox. And for them to get him 2 years, $17 million a piece, I mean, it works out so well for both sides. The risk is way down for the White Sox because it's 2 years, and 2 years that they are not expected to compete. Baseball fans and people who will cover the game just want to see them take steps forward, and I think they're on their way to doing that. There's some exciting pitching, live arms coming within the next year or two as well. So there's a lot to look forward to there. I think a lot of people didn't believe it because when was the last time we saw the White Sox involved in a big free agent name? But, in 2 years, they can walk away from this deal if it didn't go like they wanted to. And on Murakami's side, to get to be a free agent again at 28, like if he goes and mashes, even if he struggles this year, he puts a great year together next year, if the season is going on, obviously, that's huge for him because then all these teams that were kind of interested but just worried about the whiff, like you were talking about, are going to dive back into him. And as far as him playing first base, he's played first base before, not for a while, but if you look at his games played at first base, he has a nice number of games played under his belt at first base in Japan. It's just hasn't been for the last couple of years. But this guy's story, it's so interesting. I mean, he burst onto the scene in the 2023 World Baseball Classic, kind of got a lot of attention everywhere, had the big moment against Mexico with the walk-off hit. I believe might have scored Shohei Ohtani as the winning run. But an electric moment there. If you watch any highlights of this dude, regardless of the whiff and the swing and miss, when he does make contact, it feels different than most guys. It just jumps off the bat. Like it is different. And it's even more impressive thinking about it, the fact that this is NPB, where you go back and listen to the Jim Allen episode. He tells us about how it's a dead ball league. It's been a dead ball league almost every year for a long time now. So for the ball to look like that coming off his bat in that league specifically makes it all the more impressive in my mind. So I think it's a great fit, an unexpected fit, but wonderful. I mean, I had just tweeted out last night, right before actually the rumors started about the White Sox being in negotiations, about how I thought the Padres would have been a fantastic fit for him. Competitor, but also one of the lowest slugging percentages in the league last year, but also a very nice and low K percentage. So that's the perfect mix of like, hey, we could use the extra bop and we can afford a little extra swing and miss. My biggest concern for him, I mean, I got to watch the defense. I really don't know what to expect on that point. But my biggest concern to go along with the swing and miss is not just the swing and miss, but that a lot of the swing and miss comes on pitches in the zone. Like his contact percentage of pitches in the zone is not a percentage you want to see. So he's going to have to work on it. But here's the thing, man. I tweeted something earlier where some scouts had said about Shohei Ohtani coming over here that they saw him as more of like a high school player and they thought he would struggle mightily against major league pitching. So yes, is there a little more proof of the struggles we're worried about with Murakami? For sure. But he can come over here and prove everybody wrong. A few coaches can get his ear and change things. They're going to get their hands all over him. And this is a big moment for the White Sox, because if they can help turn him into that superstar, all of a sudden the White Sox are going to be seen in a different light as far as, hey, maybe Chicago is becoming a destination. And it is a big city, right? We think about the Cubs there, but they're playing in Chicago as well. This is a big city. So if they continue to do the right thing, you know what? The White Sox could be seen in a completely different light in 3 years from now.
Yeah, and the thing is, they have to give people a reason to go out there with the talent. And I, like I mentioned, Colson Montgomery and Kyle Teal, Miguel Vargas, these guys are giving people a reason to go out. because they're averaging 108 losses over the past 3 seasons. So this is a team that has to go out there and give you a reason to buy a ticket, sit in your seat, buy the jerseys. And I think Murakami, in the best case scenario, he makes you excited. And
Yep.
we mentioned the total cost. They have to put up the $6.6 million with the posting fee. It's still very manageable. They're going to be projected to have an $84 million payroll in 2026, well below typical big market levels, pretty much where they were last year. And you mentioned before, this is a disciplined gamble. This is not a shortcut back to being a contender. I don't think anyone's deluding themselves believing that. They bought upside without locking themselves into a long-term risk. But for Murakami, and like obviously the market, he was testing it out, and we'll see where the market is in 2 years when he's a free agent. He bought himself runway and leverage to be out here because the clock was ticking. Monday was the deadline of finding a team and finding a home. And for a rebuilding club, for the White Sox, who they are, this is exactly the type of bet worth making. And hopefully it pressures some other teams that are not, maybe in the same spot where the White Sox are, the Marlins of the world, having an opportunity to put this money. It's not that unreasonable to ask these teams to do this. And I give the White Sox a lot of credit, because if I'm a White Sox fan, I'm certainly not, there's a lot to be excited about. And that's all you hope for with the team that is as bad as they've been. And I think last year it felt a lot different. Obviously, they lost the record amount of games. We talk about that and look at it. It felt different. They lost a lot of games last year, but it just felt different seeing some of the exciting players on the field. And that's all you want as a team that's like, all right, we're not winning yet, but at least we could be excited about it.
Absolutely. Some fun players to watch and hope for the future. That is the recipe right now for them. Just a little bit more like digging in here. I was interested to see, like, all right, left-handed hitter here. What is the ballpark factor for Murakami playing at rate fields? No longer guaranteed, just rate fields.
They don't want to guarantee anything.
No guarantees
No
here.
guarantees.
Perfect. No guarantees. We're giving this guy a shot. I will say this, first of all, to go on your point, to see a team like the White Sox be in on this when it kind of fell to them, because first of all, that's a whole different conversations. We're jumping all over the place, but like the estimates for his services, MLB Trade Rumors had him at 8 years, 180 million when they made their predictions.
Mm-hmm.
That was on the higher side of the predictions that I saw. ESPN had the most conservative guess that I saw, and they had 5 years, 80 million, which almost nailed the AAV. That comes out to around 16 million. He ends up making 17 million, but still 3 years off. No one had him down at 2, even 3, 4 years. I don't know if I can think of another projection that was so far off for a guy. But again, it is a different ball game when you're bringing somebody over here that has not played here, right? So I think there's some of that as well. And such a hole in it's this trend in the game. I call it the Blue Jays factor, but it was probably changing before that. I think the Blue Jays have really brought home the put the ball in play, high average on base percentage kind of stuff. So a guy like Murakami, maybe against that trend, it concerns people if they're looking for a different way to win nowadays. Murakami maybe 5 years ago would have gotten that 8-year, $180 million deal that MLB Trade Rumors had projected. Not in the type of game we're playing now, I guess. So anyways, back to rate fields. For left-handed hitters over the last 3 years, the overall park factor is 100, which is right in the middle, average, tied for 6th best if you look at it. But 100 is basically like, even. And then the home run park factor, specifically for home runs, I was a little surprised. I thought it was going to be better. Only 96 for left-handed hitters specifically, which is right in the middle of the league at 15th. So not a huge advantage either way for Murakami. They're not a disadvantage either. He's kind of, doesn't end up being the biggest factor for him, but just something to look at. I'm excited, man, to have the White Sox and the Pirates made a move and apparently are going to make more. It's fun to see some teams that we are not used to getting some headlines here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had, as I mentioned before, a trade that went down prior to this and two teams going in different directions. The Red Sox have acquired Wilson Contreras from the Cardinals. We got the return package here for right-hander Hunter Dobbins and pitching prospects Yokir Ferraro and Blake Ada. St. Louis is also sending $8 million to offset part of the $41.5 million remaining in Contreras' contract, which is a hefty fee. And Contreras will receive $1 million bonus for waiving his full no trade clause. All right, so this move, which obviously continues Boston's recent pattern of requiring established veterans from this team, and also can't forget the relationship between Chaim Bloom, the Cardinals organization, and these guys have this open door that seems to be pick up the phone and figure it out. Less than a month ago, after landing Sonny Gray, the Red Sox now add another St. Louis veteran to the fold here. And the notable that given both the players had full no trade clauses and were initially unwilling to waive them when the Cardinals first exploring maybe a rebuild last winter, and now they're looking at it and saying, maybe we'll want to go to Boston. So the Cardinals, I mean, we can go two different directions. We can talk about Contreras, but the Cards piece of this, we know they're rebuilding. They're finally looking at it and saying, we need to figure out who this team will be in the next 5 years. Last year, 78 and 84, they moved more decisively towards the future, and I think Contreras, like Gray, Nolan Arenado, they're all open to change. And that needs to happen for St. Louis to get there because they put themselves in a hole. And I'm not saying, no trade clauses are the be all end all, but that is a factor when you can't get the best deal. And the fact that they're able to move these guys and find a way to figure out, again, what this team looks like in the next couple of years, because they were going nowhere. That was the worst thing. We talked about the White Sox. At least you could see the vision of what it is. For St. Louis, we talked about it all year. In the year before that, what is this team's identity? And no one really knows what it is. Just a bunch of veterans that are boring. And I think for St. Louis, this is probably the perfect thing for them. And for the Red Sox, this feels a little bit, for me, looking at it as a Yankee fan, like they're moving and shaking in this offseason while Brian Cashman is sleeping in a sleeping bag.
Well, it's funny because that's the Yankee fan perspective, but if you talk to the Red Sox fans, they feel kind of like Yankee fans feel like they weren't super excited by Sonny Gray. I haven't gotten a beat on this yet. It's so fresh, but like they've made the trades, they've done nothing in free agency. I believe we saw the only two teams that have not signed a free agent as of a few days ago, I believe, are the Rockies and the Red Sox. So yes, they're making some moves here. Not all the Red Sox fans are super thrilled with it. To touch on the Cardinals before we move to the Red Sox, I agree. I mean, it's time, right? You're just a middling club at this point. Chaim Bloom has taken over now, and he was tasked with this once upon a time with the Red Sox too. And so he's going to tear it down and try to rebuild something here. I fully expect here. Wilson Contreras, as of a month or two ago, was basically saying, he was going to use his no trade clause and didn't want to go. Like he wanted to stay here. He signed here specifically to be a Cardinal. And he obviously changed that tune. We heard a couple weeks ago he became open to it. And that to me must be a veteran seeing the writing on the wall, being like, all right, well, I don't want to waste a few of my good years left in a place where we have no chance to really win in those years and their rebuilding years. So I don't blame him at all. I would expect Brendan Donovan to be the next piece moved. He, I think, is highly sought after. I think they could do nicely in a deal moving Brendan Donovan. Maybe they'll be a little more stubborn about what they move him for and realize like, hey, he'll be a super valuable piece at the deadline as well. But if they get the right offer, I think they're going to be inclined to move Donovan as well. I think teams like the Yankees should be interested in Brendan Donovan. I think he's a nice piece you could kind of move into a few different places. I think the Seattle Mariners, who I've heard a little bit of a connection, I think they would be a nice spot for him too. So if you have a couple of the teams that are in the thick of the AL race, like the Yankees and the Mariners, I think maybe they could get a decent package for a Brendan Donovan. Nolan Arenado is obviously another piece. The saga of Nolan Arenado for the last couple of years. He's one way or another. I don't think he's going to be on the opening day roster. I don't know if they just straight up release him. Some rumors that if the Angels can figure out the Anthony Rendon stuff and get him off their roster for good, that maybe Nolan Arenado ends up as an Angel. Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, it's time for the Cardinals. They're trying to kind of get some arms here, and hopefully a few of them turn out. And I think they have the right approach so far. As far as the Red Sox, you look at their projected lineup as it sits today. Eric Cross tweeted this one out. So Roman Anthony at the top, Jarren Duran, who's still there. And I think will still be there. I know a lot of trade rumors kind of surround him for a while now, but I expect Duran to still be there. Wilson Contreras could slot right into the number 3 spot there. And then you would go Wilyer Abreu, Trevor Story, Masa, Yoshida, Carlos Narvaez, Marcelo Mayer, and Cedane Rafaela. It's not a bad lineup. It could use a little more pop still. I think that's what Red Sox fans think. But there's a lot of professional hitters in there, and Roman Anthony has probably only scratched the surface of his abilities. I like the little blend of youth and vets, I think, especially now with Contreras in the fold. So I'm a fan of it. I mean, Contreras has made a nice transition from catcher to first base. -1 on the DRS last year, but a 6 OAA. So OAA would tell you he's easily above average defensively at first base. I think one way or another, he's solid over there. Solid. Maybe not, eye-catching or highlight-worthy, but he's going to play a solid first base over there. He's pretty consistent at the plate, around a 20 home run hitter, depending on his health that year. So I think the nice piece about a Wilson Contreras is you kind of know what you're getting. So I think it's a nice trade. Not one I expected. I thought Wilson would be traded. I did not see him going to Boston, but Boston, for a while now, it seemed like they wanted a different answer at first base. You and I were talking very briefly before the episode. I don't know what this means for Tristan Casas. Obviously, the big unfortunate injury last year. It seems like they don't really feel like he's a big part of their future.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for a lot of this is not a franchise-defining move at all. That's why it's understated, but this is why it works for Boston, because the biggest thing is a lot of the conversation around Boston has been the trade market, and we've talked about all the prices for some of these guys moving premium prospects. They did not do that. They also didn't assume the $41.5 million to the commitment, and
Right.
they addressed their real lineup imbalance. Now they have a right-handed power bat in there. He's a professional hitter. If he produces even solidly above average offense over the next 2 seasons, I think the deal justifies itself. Obviously, the risk isn't, present ability. It's obviously the positional rigidity that we see here for them. And a bat first baseman carries little margin if the decline comes quickly. You mentioned the +6 outs above average, which again, not going to be a liability. -1 defensive run save. He's not going to be like an eyesore out there. We've seen some first basemen out there. Going back to why he was willing to waive the no trade, if you look historically about who he signed that contract. It was 5 years, $87.5 million back in December of 22. And I think everything that was being sold to him as he was going to be the successor to Yadier Molina as the Cardinals catcher. And then he was gradually phased out behind the plate. Then he was a DH. And then we saw him transition to a full-time first baseman in 2025. And it wasn't a bad position change, but there's something, I don't know, very honorable about being there. And like, you wanted to be a lifetime Cardinal. This is a historic organization. And for them to pull it out from him, I think that's part of the reason why he never was fitting cleanly into the post-Molina plan. And I think holding him, obviously for the Cardinals, meant holding the salary and the role ambiguity into the rebuild. Where does a 34-year-old Wilson Contreras fit for the Cardinals in the next 3 years? It makes sense for both sides here. And like you said before, when he gets hot, he's a professional hitter. He can carry a lineup when he's out there doing his thing, and turning the remaining money into like figuring out what this is for them. I give St. Louis a lot of credit for moving in the direction. Again, they had to have the cooperation of the players with the no trades, but they're making the right moves for their fans. It may not be exciting for them to sit through some of this baseball, but it's the right move. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I could see Alex Cora being excited about the move, maybe even being the guy who's pushing for it behind the scenes. A guy like Wilson Contreras that just professional, but also brings that fire there. Like, you're not going to mess with his teammates and get away with it, right? He's not going to hold himself back when he thinks something is going on that he doesn't like. But I think players like to play with a guy like Wilson Contreras. He's going to bring everybody up when they need it, fire them up. And he's a steady presence out there. So the Red Sox, another nice move, in my opinion. You're bringing on another vet, Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras. It's nice to have those guys surrounding lots of youth in other spots and in an absolute beast of a division. I think you need that. It's a long year. You have some just ultra competitors. Toronto Blue Jays, obviously, the New York Yankees, and the Baltimore Orioles have kind of announced themselves as like, hey, we're going to be in the mix too. And apparently they don't seem to be done from what everybody is hearing. So this division, man, really, really fun. And who the hell knows what the Tampa Bay Rays might actually do next.
Yeah, and I mean, for the get back here, what remains to be seen. Hunter Dobbins is the headline of this deal. I find it funny as a Yankee fan. That's the quote that came out from him, saying that he would never want to play for the Yankees. He'd retire before playing. All the news that came out of that with the headline, and he winds up being traded out of the division after that. So enjoy St. Louis, Hunter Dobbins, and do your thing over there. And we'll see what Wilson Contreras can bring for the Boston Red Sox. I do like his swing at Fenway Park. That's for sure. I think he fits really well in that ballpark, but who doesn't if you're a professional hitter, right? That's a very hitter-friendly ballpark.
Yeah, no, he could definitely do some damage in certain parts of Fenway. So if I'm a Boston fan, again, I don't know if I'm over the moon about what they've done so far, mainly because of the division they're in. But I think you have to be at the very least optimistic, especially having a Roman Anthony and like knowing that we still haven't necessarily seen the potential yet, and a Marcelo Meyer. Like, it's not just Roman. So if I was a Boston fan, I'd be pretty excited right now.
Well, you mentioned the Rays. They were involved in a 3-team deal, and the Pirates were the biggest headline here, probably getting the biggest offensive push via this deal, acquiring second baseman Brandon Lowe, outfielder Jake Magnum, and left-hander reliever Mason Montgomery from the Rays. And in the deal, Pittsburgh goes over sending Mike Burrows to the Astros, while Tampa Bay landed Jacob Melton and Anderson Brito from Houston. So for everyone's talking about the fits. And I think it's probably appropriate to start with the Pirates and Brandon Lowe because that's the immediate right now. I think we can kind of recognize that and appreciate not only were the Pirates in on Schwarber conversation about some of these free agents, they're actually making offers. They're bringing in a guy that, for the most part, I mean, the Pirates finished last in MLB in runs last year. They last in home runs, last in OPS. This is a move that directly addresses the biggest weakness that they had, and that's offense. He is the headliner of this deal. He's coming off a 31 home run season. He's earning, he had second all-star selection in his career, 1 year remaining. So it's pretty affordable. And he gives Pittsburgh an immediate left-handed power at a manageable cost, which makes sense. And for me, Brandon Lowe, the biggest concern clearly is the injury, right? Like, and when he's on the field, we know what he can be. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, but he seems motivated to be there. And some of these guys that are coming over, like seeing Jake Mangum, there's like a little bit of this buzz of like, we want to play in Pittsburgh, get the Allegheny ready, and we're ready to play with Paul Skeens. Maybe that's the Paul Skeens effect that's making it motivating to be over there.
Yeah, and I think they know. I think fans around the league or players around the league know that the Pirates have a passionate fan base that are like just yearning for some type of product to actually believe like we could do something here. And again, I've said this a lot of times, the NL Central, like, yeah, the Cubs and Brewers should be really good again, but there's a part of me that feels like that division is still open for them to make a little bit of a move if they make the right moves in the offseason. So a Brandon Lowe, I mean, I think this is good on both sides as far as if you look at some of the analytics and some things trending in ways that you don't love for the Rays, it was the right time to trade him to get some value back. I think you were on the brink of maybe waiting too long. The Rays don't get very sentimental. I do think they had been a little sentimental with a Brandon Lowe for a little while. He's just seemed to be the heartbeat of that team. I mean, we talked to Ryan Bass, who covers the Rays and are close to the Rays, interviews the guys on the team all the time, as well as the front office guys. I mean, if you go back, that's last offseason, but if you go back and listen to that episode with him, he goes on for a while about Brandon Lowe, and it just sounds like the heartbeat of that team. So I'm sure it hurts for Rays fans and the clubhouse to see Lowe go, but I do think this was the right time to kind of make that move. And if you're a Pirates fan, like you said, the thing they really lack is pop. So, like, yes, there are things to be concerned about in Brandon Lowe's profile. His chase percentage and whiff percentage are not great. His K percentage is not great. He doesn't walk enough, things like that. But if you look at barrel percentage, hard hit percentage, and just home runs, right, the guy is going to add that pop. He is what I would call a streaky player. I think anyone who's owned him in fantasy baseball will tell you that. He could carry your team for a week or two sometimes. Like off the waiver wire, and then suddenly the week after, you're just like, I'm dropping this dude. That's the kind of player Brandon Lowe is, but I think he's a really, really good clubhouse dude. The rumor I saw is that as of now, he may play left field or somewhere in the outfield, and Nick York may get that opportunity at second base. And there's another big name out there that may take the second base position over in Tampa, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But on the Pirates side, that's the rumor right now, that maybe Brandon Lowe plays the outfield, something new for him. Again, I mean, 31 home runs last year, 256 average. Like, I get the analytics are like concerning some places. I know people didn't love the defense. The defense is really bad at second base too. The range, the OAA, minus 13. But if he's in the outfield, maybe he's less of a liability in a corner outfield position.
Yeah, and the other pieces in this deal, not to spend too much time talking about them, but they deserve some love. Jake Mangum, contact player, speed and defensive. He played all three positions last year in the outfield. Didn't make an error. He's a guy that, coming out, stole 27 bases. He has some value even without the power. So he's going to be a complimentary piece in this deal. I think he'd be a fan favorite if he's able to play enough and kind of make people excited. As far as the other pieces in this deal, I think for the Houston side of things, obviously getting the arm in the deal with Burrows. This is a guy with top pitching prospect for the Pirates. We know they're wealthy in that area, so it's like, okay, we don't really care about giving that up. And for the Astros, this is a weird fork in the road for them too. Obviously, there's a lot of things in flux with them. Their rotation will look certainly different. Injuries have affected that. Free agency has affected that. It seems like the front office is being a little bit more cost averse right now, to put it lightly. But I think this piece here, we saw the rookie season last year, 3.94 ERA, 97 strikeouts and 96 innings from Burrows. But we know the Pirates also have the depth. So they were able to say, you know what? We got Paul Skeens. We also, everyone else behind them, like, we can let this go. And they could trade from the strength. And of course, they have to address the offense because it doesn't matter who you have on the mound. If you're not scoring runs to them, you're going to lose a lot of games. And immediately you slot Brandon Lowe in that lineup, all the advanced metrics kind of say he's your most prolific offensive player right now. And that's, again, speaking to who they were, this team is going to look way different next year if Brandon Lowe is able to be out there and be healthy for 162.
Yeah, and I mean, Ben Cherington made like no bones about it. He said, we don't think we're done. We think we're going to have some opportunities down the road here in the offseason to add more. So you got to love that. Yes, like you said, trading from a area of strength to address a weakness. This was really the second example this week of a team doing that. And we've been on here for 2 years now, begging certain teams to do this, Pirates included, right? And a team we're going to talk about in a minute as well, which I can't wait for. Don't always worry about if it seems like an overpay according to some website. If you are trading from an area of strength, an area you have kind of too much, more than you need to be able to address a weakness, even if it's considered an overpay by outsiders, if it makes sense for your club, like do it. Don't be the whole thing is some of these front offices, I think, fear that moment of like 4 years down the road, the trade looks bad. Like I get it. You do have to be looking 10 pages ahead, but sometimes it's like, especially with a lockout looming, like let's try to win now. So I love it.
Yeah, and Tampa was very active, of course, in this deal. They got Jacob Melton and Anderson Brito, as I mentioned, but they were active even prior to this, and they wound up moving Shane Baz. And for the Orioles, I guess from their perspective, they add some from depth here, acquiring Shane Baz from the Rays, and it would take a lot. And got to remember, this is an interdivision trade. So obviously Tampa Bay had to pay a hefty price. They received Slater DeBrun, Caden Bodine, Michael Ferret, Austin Overn, and a competitive balance round A draft pick, while Baltimore is clearing a roster spot by designating Josh Walker for assignment. And this Shane Baz piece, we mentioned fantasy baseball, one of the more frustrating pitchers to own. We know how exciting he can be just watching him on the field. 26 years old. It feels like he still can peak and be a little bit better than we've actually seen, which is exciting. At one point, one of the more elite pitching prospects, he was ranked number 8 in Baseball America in 2022, just behind Grayson Rodriguez. And like Grayson Rodriguez, there's a lot of parallels there. His path has been shaped by injuries. But I mean, unlike Grayson Rodriguez, we saw him get the career high in starts last year. So he proved he can do it. 166 in the third innings pitched across 31 starts. The results, of course, were uneven, but at least he was on the field. And I think for Baltimore, what they did with Trevor Rogers, what they've done with other pitchers out there, they're probably confident that the raw skills are there. We're going to be able to get it out there and figure it out, because the home runs were the primary issue for him. He allowed 1.41 home runs per 9. That clearly needs to be figured out. I mean, that was driven in part by pitching his home games at Steinbrenner Field. You have to remember that piece.
A lot. Yeah.
It was
Big
the second
time.
most homer friendly for right-handed hitters in MLB, obviously minor league park. And Camden Yards is still favorable to righties, but it's less extreme. So I would expect him to bounce back. His ERA is going to probably be better. The underlying metrics are very forgiving for him. The Sierra was below 3.95. The FIP was 4.37, a 24.8% strikeout rate, 9% walk rate. And then the ground ball rate is what I like to see as well, 46.7%. So this is a player that they're looking at. Like, they paid a hefty fee, but this is a guy that you ask me on the spot, do I want Shane Baz or Grayson Rodriguez? Who am I getting more out of? I'm going Shane Baz 7 out of 7 days.
Yeah, man, I love it. I know there are a decent number of Twitter accounts there killing the Orioles for this deal. Orioles got fleeced. Like, listen, man, I understand the ERA from Shane Baz was not pretty last year. And I understand these are high prospects. But how long have people like us been banging the table about Orioles? You need pitching. You have so many prospects. Stop hugging your prospects. Move some of this offense for pitching. And now they do it. They move some of these prospects and they get a pitcher who's pitched at the big league level, but still is young, still seems to have potential untapped, right? This is, to me, a great deal. I understand they gave up a lot. And by the way, I don't think it's a bad deal for the Rays. Props to the Rays for continuing to do what they need to do to survive, which is move pieces before they can't, to kind of restock the prospect cupboard. Then sometimes they're going to use those prospects to kind of go trade for other major league talent, right? This is how the Rays have to survive in the wild based on their payroll constraints. I know new ownership there. Who knows if a few years that changes a little bit and they can be a little different strategically. But for now, this is how they survive. I mean, it hasn't won them anything. I will say that. So everyone who praises the Rays, it's like, okay, but I think in baseball, we get so obsessed with prospects and who has the most prospects and who gets these really good prospects and drafts well, when really it's like, okay, if that equals championships, like in the Dodgers case, it kind of does with that and packaged with a lot of other things, obviously, great. But otherwise, like, we should be praising the Orioles right now for being ballsy enough to do this. I mean, Caden Bodine in that deal is one of the guys I really like, just drafted this past year out of Coastal Carolina. A lot to like about him. But we've also been killing the Orioles for having so many good catchers. Like just last year in the draft, they drafted two catchers high in the draft. They had tons of draft picks in the top 50 picks. So they're moving guys now from positions of strength for a position of weakness. Shane Baz, I mean, you look at the stuff plus, there's a lot to like. 107 total. The slider 109. The knuckle curve 125 last year. Hell yeah, man.
That was a new pitch
Yeah.
in 25. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Like there are things to look at and be like, okay, I see what Mike Elias likes here. And you can't gloss over what you mentioned as far as, listen, he, I believe in 2024 was out for most of the year, came back sometime in the second half.
Yep.
Okay. Still kind of trying to get past the injury. Imagine your first full year from injury being back is spent in the ridiculous heat of Steinbrenner Field. There's a reason Tampa has never played their home games completely outdoors all season, right? And that's what he goes through. Like you said, the home run rate goes sky high. I mean, the splits tell you everything you need to know. They're not even close to each other. Basically, almost an even amount of innings home and away. 82 and a third at home, Steinbrenner Field last year. 84 away on the road. A 5.9 ERA, damn close to 6 at home in that heat. 3.86 away. 3.86. So, like, there you go. 18 home runs at home, 8 on the road. A lot of those home runs at Steinbrenner Field will not be home runs in a different ballpark. So if I'm Baltimore, man, I am very pleased. I still have lots of prospects. Some of them just so happen to already be in the big leagues, right? But I still have all these young talents here. I'm fine in that regard. And I just got a 26-year-old kid here who has so much to like, whether it be his stuff. He's got some experience under his belt. And like you said, I think the main thing is you got to hope that the health problems are in the past and aren't going to come up every single year.
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece that the Orioles paid a hefty price is he's still under team control for 3 more seasons. He's only going to earn $3.1 million in arbitration. He's highly affordable, and I think we look at the projected payroll of the Baltimore Orioles right now. A lot of the projections have 140, which is, by my calculation, $70 million below the first luxury tax threshold. So they're able to go out there and spend if they're able to look at another frontline arm, because obviously the rotation was the concern. We talk about the competitive timeline for the Orioles. Last year was a wash. The season got off to a bad start, injuries, etc., and it just didn't pan out. I think right now, looking at Shane Baz, he has potential to be a frontline starter. Yeah. But I think he's not the guy they actually need to be the guy. And I think looking at him, if he's being trusted to be the frontline starter, and you're going to roll in with Shane Baz and Trevor Rogers, my concern would be that's not enough, especially in this division. So if I'm grading this trade, I want to see what else is going to be done with the Baltimore Orioles. And I think that's easy to say right now. The offseason's not done, but I think they need to make more moves. And maybe it's trade, maybe it's free agency, but they have to find a way. Like a Framber Valdez, he still fits in here, like we mentioned before.
Well,
go out and get the guy.
That's what I was going to ask you. So this offseason, like, look at what they've done. They've added to the bullpen Helsley, who might be a little bit of a project. I mean, I wasn't the hugest fan, but could work out very well for them. It was a necessary signing. Andrew Kittredge is brought back into the fold. So they've addressed the bullpen a little bit, right? Taylor Ward. Okay, we were scratching our heads a little bit because we're like another outfielder. Seems strange. Grayson Rodriguez, you're giving up on him. Okay. But then they go out and double down on it. And here's the thing. If you're going to commit to the bit, I kind of respect it more. They're committing to the bit. They're bringing more bats in. Tried for Schwarber, matched the Phillies offer, apparently, and then go get Pete Alonso instead. So they just continue adding to the offensive presence to bash you to death. And now we're looking at the pitching. Baz, and again, they've kind of alluded to this as like not the last piece here. I'll ask you this. If they go finish this offseason by signing Ranger Suarez or Framber Valdez, did they win the offseason?
It certainly looks like they did, or the Rays did. That's the funny part about this, looking at what the Rays turned into their project. And
Yeah, but we're not going to know that for another 5 years at least. Like,
I like what the Rays did. I like what the Rays did a lot as well. Like, I just want to put some love on that as well. I like what the Rays did, and this is what they do. You mentioned this is their classic value play, and they don't have the sentimentality. I think in the immediate, yeah, probably Baltimore wins the offseason, but in the long run, the next 2 years, I think people are going to look at this offseason from the Rays like this might have been transformational for this franchise.
Yeah, again, my problem is just like we always praise the Rays for like dominating trades, and everyone's looking back at the Chris Archer trade, and the tree now of that trade is pretty crazy and kind of fun to look
It's
at.
crazy, right?
But they haven't won anything, man. Like, okay, like they still haven't gotten over that hump to win anything. Like, I just feel like they're given so much love for just constantly churning players back out for new players. But it's just this circle that goes around and around and never results in a win.
I hear that for sure. I hear that.
I feel like I can't fully articulate what I'm saying.
No,
but
it makes sense because they're fully like they're getting credit for creating value, and then they trade that value for more value and equal value, and they're always paying the same. They never go all in. Because the thing is with the Rays team, I guess what makes them befuddling is they're kind of in the spot a couple years ago where the Orioles are now, where if you would have just spent and embraced the core you had, you might have been able to contend for a World Series, because what they were able to do, win the AL East with the team they had. It's like if you would have invested another $50-70 million into this team, who knows what they could have done.
Yeah, there's just like no other sport, I feel like, where this is like they trade people away to get younger people, and we're all like, oh my God, look at these guys. Like, can you imagine your Packers just like, they went out and got the veteran Micah Parsons this year, obviously, unfortunately tears his ACL, but like, it's not like in football, you like trade the star and get like 4 other guys back that haven't even played in the NFL yet. Right. And we're all like, holy shit, like they fleeced them. Like, it's just weird. There's this baseball mentality when people are getting good prospects that we don't even know are going to turn out. And to be honest, typically don't. Most of these guys end up being average or worse. I know there is to a degree, I will say, I feel like more of these guys are hitting, at least the top guys. We're getting more correct. But for all those guys, for all the, Nick Kurtz of the world, there's also like Ahmed Rosario was the #1 overall prospect. Yoan Moncada was the #1 overall prospect. We're not even talking about down at the bottom, number 100. And now it's like, oh my God, they got 4 guys in this organization's top 30. We're not even talking about the overall top 100. Like, I don't know. There's a part of me where it's just like, I can't believe the O's, by like people I really respect on Twitter, are getting absolutely killed for making that deal. And I'm just like, what are we looking at here? Listen, if Baz goes out there and gets freaking shelled all year next year, I'll see the light and admit that I was completely off base here. And I'm not shitting necessarily on the Rays for their deal. Okay, I think they got a good return, and overall, you combine those 2 deals we just talked about, and in one day, yeah, they brought in a lot of talent. But again, I'm a bigger fan right now of the win now mentality.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want. And I think that's what we've been preaching for a long time. A lot of baseball fans are doing that. And I think we mentioned it's still being an open book about what this offseason is. And I guess the next eventual question is what the Rays are doing with the prospects. Is Ketel Marte in sight? Because the common thread in Tampa Bay, and they're converting present day major league value into future leverage. And maybe that leverage is going to be used to acquire more present day talent. And by moving Shane Baz and Brandon Lowe in the separate deals, they shed more than $14 million in projected payroll. They added a competitive balance round A pick, as we talked about, the wave of prospects. You can name them by name. They restocked the system, but maybe that's where Ketel Marte actually enters this conversation, because maybe the Rays look at this, the return to Tropicana Field, the fans are excited. Marte himself is under long-term control. He plays premium positions. You talk about the WAR 4.4 last year. This guy goes out there. He is an elite player. Let's remember that. Ketel Marte is, by all accounts, a superstar. And I don't think people are ready to have that conversation because they look at everybody else. But Ketel Marte does it all. And switch hitting impact. He's exactly the type of players that the Rays have historically targeted when they decide to consolidate prospects into some certainty. He's the player, to me, that fits with the Rays perfectly if they're willing to move it. I predicted this on our offseason episodes a few episodes ago, that the Rays would make the deal to acquire Ketel Marte. Or I actually said the Seattle Mariners as well. But I believe Ketel Marte going to the Rays has always made sense. But the Rays major league roster, trimming salary, the farm system being refreshed, the rotation depth obviously skews younger. It's cheaper. that might be the moment that they look for a player who can stabilize the lineup, because they're never going to be like, we're going to be bad in the major leagues. They always want to be kind of both. And I think Ketel Marte is there because we know that he's not always going to be moved. I think Ken Rosenthal came out with the no trade list. The Rays are not on it. The Yankees are on it. And maybe if you have a no trade clause, you just pick 5 random teams you don't want to go to. Sacramento automatically gets put on it. You're not going to go to Sacramento. What are the choices here? Do you believe that Tampa Bay is loading up for something bigger, or are they waiting and biding time? Ketel Marte is affordable. We've got to remember that.
Yeah, and that is the reason I believe in this a lot. And I think I will like the deals even better that the Rays made if they turn around and now move some of their prospects, whether it be the guys they just got or other pieces, for Ketel Marte. Because then I see, they are actually still trying to win now. Because here's the thing, man, we just talked about how loaded this division is. If you're just kind of like giving these major league players up for prospects, man, you're going to get destroyed this year by this division. So Ketel Marte, man, this is like a top 10 F-WAR player for a few years now, offensively. So yeah, man, put some respect on this guy's name. He is a fantastic player. Second base is now open, right? Second base is now open in Tampa Bay without Brandon Lowe there. So these two clubs have made deals before. They seem to have a close relationship, which I do not think you can undersell. We just talked about how the Cardinals and Red Sox, with Chaim Bloom having the connection to the Red Sox, making a couple deals this offseason. We saw Arizona and Seattle twice near the trade deadline making moves. Like, there are certain front offices that just seem to work well together. So these two have some history here. I think it makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I would be concerned about, and what might actually make the Rays say, no, thank you, is I've heard rumors of like the D-backs are only going to move him if they can get some major league pitching back. That is what they're trying to address in a Ketel Marte deal. I've heard Ryan Pepio's name connected. I mean, can you really trade Shane Baz and then turn around a week later or 2 weeks later and trade Ryan Pepio as well? Who, remember, you traded Tyler Glasnow to the Dodgers to get Pepio. So like, can you go do that for offense? Now your pitching staff might be in trouble. So I know you're hoping Shane McClanahan comes back healthy, but let's not put too many of our eggs in that basket yet. I mean, we all, baseball fans, we all are hoping we get a healthy Shane McClanahan. That dude has just been snake bit for a little while now, and he's electric when he's out there. But you can't you can't hope your season away putting your eggs in that basket. That is a very unsure basket. So it depends on what the ask is for Arizona. Maybe they get a third team involved and there's some kind of three-team deal. I did see when the Wilson Contreras deal was announced just an hour or two ago, there was another tweet out there that said the Red Sox are walking away from the Ketel Marte talks, because I've heard their name very much attached to those trade conversations. So maybe that's good news for the Rays that the Red Sox are out of the picture. Maybe that lowers the price a little bit and they can get something done. But yeah, I am hoping, I'm not a Rays fan, I'm just a baseball fan. I want them to be competitive. I want every single team in that AL East to be in the mix. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I would love this fit. I wish Ketel Marte would just stay in Arizona, to be honest. But if they are set on moving him, I think it'd be a really cool fit. You mentioned this is the most team-friendly deal of any superstar in the league, other than maybe Ronald Acuna, which that deal's not much longer. So I love it. I mean, that's what the Rays have to hunt. If they're going to hunt for a superstar, they have to find the rare superstar that has that team-friendly contract. So to me, there's a lot of reasons to make this connection.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like, again, it makes me question, like, we're all ready and eager to have the conversation about where Ketel Marte could go and the package you might get, but I guess you need to ask the question of why would you trade him? It's not like he has this albatross of a contract. Like we said, it's team-friendly. The Diamondbacks should be able to do that. They do have long-term payroll decisions to make, and are they more of the 2023 team, or are they more of the team we've seen the last 2 years of who they are? And I like what I see there. I mean, we talk about Marte, we talk about Corbin Carroll, but Geraldo Perdomo seems like he was superstar adjacent last year. So for me, if I'm a D-backs fan, you got to ask your question, like, why would he be moved? Unless you're blown away. Like, talk about matching with the Red Sox. If the Red Sox put in some of these major league talent with the logjam they have in the outfield, okay, we'll listen. But if it's just going to be, we're going to get Michael Ferret from Tampa Bay that gets flipped around, like, why would you make that deal? It just doesn't feel like it aligns with the vision for a team that's not only trying to win now, but also win in the future. Marte fits kind of both of those models because he's signed long-term.
Yeah, it confuses me a little bit too. I mean, I've read some theories about it that they feel like they can flip him for pitching and dress the pitching staff and shore
Is
that
it the
up.
personality thing too? Like we heard that, like they don't get along. Like I mean, that's been kind of the issue in the Mets clubhouse, but maybe it's the same with Ketel Marte in Arizona.
Yeah, well, if you remember last year, there was rumors that he was like, there's a few games that
he got robbed or something. His house got broken.
Yeah,
into.
there's the stuff with his mom too. He was going through a lot of shit, but apparently he didn't communicate very well with the team. It sounds like Terry Lavula was on MLB Network recently and didn't really shy away from it. Said like, yeah, there was some things kind of lost in translation in a way there that we wish didn't happen. But Geraldo Perdomo also like vehemently defended him. Remember that in like a post game, like went out of his way to say like all these rumors you're hearing are way overblown. We love Ketel. So I don't know, man. That guy's a hell of a player. So for them to move him, I think they're convinced that they can maybe address something that they think is a weakness in pitching and then still put enough on the field offensively to be good enough with guys like Corbin Carroll there and Perdomo, who seems to be maybe a budding superstar. I think we all need one more season of proof that he can do what he did last year before we all call him that. But I mean, again, this is what top 5 player in F4 last year offensively, if not very close. Like crazy what Perdomo did. So I think there's a part of that. I mean, Corbin Burns eventually, you don't go sign Corbin Burns one year.
That was going to be my point.
This is my problem with the Mets and the Juan Soto stuff. Like, you don't go sign Juan Soto and then a year later, like, tear it down. Like, and they'll tell you they're not, but like, I'm still not convinced they're not. And for the Diamondbacks, it's similar. You don't go sign Corbin Burns one year, and then I know he gets hurt and that sucks, and then the next year you trade your superstar offensive player away unless you love what you're getting back. So that's the one hole I see in the Rays thing. It's like, I don't think they can trade major league pitching necessarily unless it's like a Joe Boyle. I don't think that's enough. I mean, obviously not Joe Boyle alone, but if it's him and a bunch of pretty high level prospects, I don't know. I'm not sure what gets it done. I think there's a lot that makes sense to it, but when you talk about that part, it does start to feel like it comes apart a little bit, which is why I said maybe this is another example of some kind of 3-team deal. I don't have a third team to guess that could come be a part of it and help these guys out and get something for themselves too. But that might be what we're looking at.
So, I mean, this also tied with the Alex Bregman conversation because the D-backs have thrown their hat in the ring for this as well, because the biggest news out of it is the Blue Jays are now officially in the mix for them. They contacted Scott Boras. This was per Ken Rosenthal earlier in the weekend. Toronto is joining the Red Sox, the Cubs, and the aforementioned Arizona Diamondbacks as the known suitors for Alex Bregman's services. And I think looking at the Diamondbacks' interest feels more speculative to me. Because we're talking about before. Like obviously, they do have a clear vacancy at third. They traded Suarez at the deadline. The payroll constraints, it doesn't fit. If you're thinking about trading Marte for his team-friendly deal and looking at who they are as a team, their payroll is $171 million, which is well below last year's mark. Ownership has come out publicly and said that the spending will come down. And yeah, the Marte money could be freed up with a trade. But I think with like the Bregman-Boras connection, I think he's going to want a lot of money. And I think maybe there's the Southwest roots that people were thinking about with Alex Bregman, that he has an affinity for the Arizona area. Cause like the door feels like it's cracked open, but like this feels like the most unlikely destination out of the teams we just mentioned.
Yeah, when I first saw it, my initial reaction was like, or just keep Ketel Marte and like call it a day. It would remind me again of the Corbin Burns thing last year, where they came out of left field, and it almost seemed like Burns kind of tried to court them, like, oh, we live nearby. We'd almost like to, we're raising a young family now. This would be the spot we'd want to be in. If are you guys in? And they ended up being in. So it kind of feels like that again. I mean, the Toronto thing, again, I don't know which way to go with the Toronto thing. Now, them being listed as a suitor for Bregman, it just feels like Toronto's in on every high-priced free agent. So I still see Tucker as more of a fit in Toronto than I do Bregman. But I'm not saying Bregman would be a bad piece. I don't love the fit, to be honest. I don't know. I don't love either of these fits. I don't see Bregman, Blue Jays, Bregman, Diamondbacks when I think about where Alex Bregman should go. But who knows, man? This has been a tricky offseason. Leadership-wise, he could help either of these clubs. I mean, if you're looking for that clubhouse presence, and if that's part of the reason Ketel Marte might be out of town, You bring in a Bregman, and we saw how beloved he was in Boston with some youngsters in the mix there. Same kind of situation. I mean, Corbin Carroll has been around a few years now, so even though he's young, he's got a nice little bit of experience under his belt. He's a superstar. But you put Bregman there too. I mean, I could see that combination working well. So I don't hate the fit. It doesn't make all the sense in the world to me either way. And again, like you said, Bregman appears to be looking for lots of money. So that doesn't make a ton of sense to me with Arizona unless he's going to take another short-term high AAV deal. But why would you have opted out of the Boston thing? You were going to make $40 million, which to me is insane amount of money for Alex Bregman. I know some people are super high on Bregman. I know, Cyrus right here on this podcast explained to us why he thinks his aging curve is going to be better than most of these free agents. But to me, I don't know, man. I there's just something about Bregman where I pump the brakes when you're starting to talk about $40 million a year. And even if you go take the AAV out of it, if you start talking about 6-7 years for Alex Bregman, I'm pumping the brakes as well. Like I don't see what a lot of other people see with Bregman. I think he could be a nice signing for the next year or two, but we've already seen he had a little more problem with health this past year. I don't know. I'm not buying it completely for either of these clubs.
And for the Blue Jays thing here, the more I think about it, obviously they've been aggressive. They got Dylan Cease. They got Tyler Rogers. Cody Ponce. They bid in on all the big name free agents. You look at what they're projected at third base. It would be Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, and Davis Schneider. And if you look at last year, the third baseman ranked 10th in OPS last season. Barger was probably the legitimate contributor after hitting 21 home runs. Clement was providing league average production all over the place. I mean, obviously became a star in the postseason. I don't know. Like, it feels like, yeah, you want to spend money, and adding Bregman could stabilize the infield. He could preserve some flexibility in outfield and DH. These guys are athletic. They can play elsewhere. But sometimes, like, part of why Toronto was where they were was the high contact rate, but it was also the vibes. Like, I'm not saying Bregman would mess up what they had, but Barger, Clement, and Davis Schneider were like a really big piece to their identity of this team. And I know you can't bring back everybody, but for me, like, why make Addison Barger not have a job after all the big hits he got for you? Like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, pay all the money. Like, if I'm Barger, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, does Bregman make you better? I mean, he has hit 23 home runs in 3 consecutive seasons. He's a strong defender at third base. He has one at the highest level. But you mentioned last year, I mean, he did have an all-star appearance last year, but he missed some time with the quad strain, and that would concern me because you have to be on the field to be productive.
Yeah, and you mentioned Addison Barger. That is the one thing with all these Toronto rumors, whether it be trade rumors. I feel like every big trade rumor, and this is mostly like fan accounts putting together prospective trades, but so many of them, when it's a big trade, throw in Addison Barger there as one of the big pieces. And then again, if you Barger plays the outfield and he plays third base. So if you're talking about Bregman, you're talking about Barger not playing there. If you're talking about Tucker, you're talking about possibly affecting Barger's time as well. When I watched Addison Barger in the playoffs, I know they worry a little bit about the left on left with him. And sometimes they don't have him in the lineup in those situations against lefties. When I watched him, man, I looked at a guy where I'm like, man, in 1 to 2 years, we could be talking about like, this is an all-star player, not just like a pretty good guy that's more of a role player. Like, he hits the ball freaking hard, man. He swings hard. There's watching that, passing the eye test. Let's just say that he passed the eye test with flying colors last postseason. No moment seemed too big for him either. I love the profile of Addison Barger. And if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm not messing with his playing time. I know we're talking about superstar, all-star caliber dudes right now, but I don't know. I would stick with the younger model here.
But maybe this is a move that's beyond 26, because if I'm looking at the free agents for after the 26 season, Dalton Varsho is a free agent, and so is George Springer. So maybe they're just like, we'll move these guys around. We'll get Bregman in-house. We like it better than the free agents that will be out there following the 26 season. He fits better with our vibe, and we want to try to win now, and we'll make it work. So yeah, I don't know. In the Boston thing, obviously, like, he opted out, and like to go back to Boston after, like, they're not, I can't imagine you're going to get the same money as you mentioned, that whatever the deal was for opting out, that feels like maybe crawling back on your hands and knees. Like, it didn't work out in the free agent market. I think the obvious fit to me is also Detroit. I don't know why they're not in this mix as well. It just feels like it's open there, but similar to the Cody Bellinger stuff, these Scott Boras clients feel like they're unrealistic about the years they're going to get. The Bellinger thing where he wants 8 years, it's like, dude, you're on a rebuild. You're on a rebound year from the year
I
before. You want 8 years, bro. Like they're going to
dude,
offer you
I don't
6 or
buy it.
7.
I don't buy that that's a real story. And I thought I heard, and this is not confirmed, I thought I saw something about Boris contacting someone that put that story out there and saying, like, get rid of that story. I was like, it's not true. There's no way Bellinger thinks he's getting like the same deal as Kyle Tucker. I just don't. Like, Cody Bellinger had a couple terrible years where he looked like on the verge of being demoted. Seriously, like look
Right?
at
No,
some of those
the Cubs
years.
accessed him. They gave him away for nothing.
Look at the end of his time with the Dodgers too, man. Like this guy was struggling is not even the word. He had lost himself, and he's kind of found a bit of it back. But there's a part of me when I watch that swing, and I know he doesn't strike out a ton, which to me is bizarre with how big that swing looks. But when I watch that swing, I just feel like it's such an intricate swing, and I feel like at any moment he could go back on the interstate. Like I feel like he could just lose it again. That scares the hell out of me. If he's looking for 8 years, he ain't getting it in Major League Baseball. I don't think he's getting 7, to be honest. I think that Bellinger deal, all the rumors we've heard, I think are way overblown.
Yeah, so let's move on with the pitching market. The Padres made one of the more consequential pitching moves of this offseason. They re-signed Michael King to a 3-year, $75 million deal. There's some opt-outs in there after each of the first 2 seasons. The contract also includes a $12 million signing bonus and a modest $5 million salary in 2026 backloaded that gives him some flexibility to re-enter free agency if he's healthy. So not quite a prove-it deal, kind of a mix of both. And, I think this is significant for San Diego. Obviously, it was a team that was poised to lose him both and Dylan Cease. I think, Divine Sports Gospel talks about Dylan Cease not being a fan favorite there, but there is a hole in the rotation with Dylan Cease gone. He's a guy that pitched a lot of innings for you. He was acquired, Michael King being that person in the Juan Soto deal. So, in 2024, this was the guy that was kind of carrying you to that run. 2.95 ERA, 201 strikeouts, almost 175 innings pitched. He was 7th in NL Cy Young. And then he was off to a strong start before the injuries derailed the season. So kind of this theme about all these pitchers we're talking about, health is the central variable for this guy. And I think with him missing 3 months with that shoulder nerve issue, kind of made him affordable for San Diego to stay in the mix here. He lost some additional time, if I remember, to knee inflammation. So that was an issue. And the effectiveness dipped. It feels like he was never quite healthy. And I think the Padres didn't opt to start him in the postseason. They just said, like, we're going to wait. And, I think a big piece of what the Padres are doing is they're trying to find a way to stay competitive while there's all this stuff in flux. And I think Michael King with this deal fits that and keeps people going to the ballpark and feeling like every 5th day, at least we'll have Michael King on the hill.
Yeah, the Padres continue to be fascinating. As far as, what are they actually doing here? What direction are they going? It's interesting because this kind of is another example of rumors just being rumors sometimes. We heard like a week ago, and it seemed like a pretty strong report that Michael King was going to decide in a few days and that it was coming down to 3 AL East teams, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Orioles. We're like, oh, shit. And I put something out there when that came out that said, like, listen, the estimates for Michael King that I've seen range from 4 for 80 or 4 for 92. But if it's 3 division foes bidding for his services, if that's a real report, don't be surprised if it goes up to 4 for 100. And I would love to see the Orioles be the team that makes that aggressive offer to be the winner of that sweepstakes. Well, it turns out it wasn't the AL East, but I did nail the AAV. He does get $25 million a year here, again, with all the opt-out situations, so it might not be seen through. But that was interesting to see how his price got pumped up as far as the AAV went. We haven't heard necessarily concrete examples of how aggressive other teams were being with him, but I feel like he was probably pretty well sought after. But when San Diego came knocking and said, we'll give you $25 million a year, we'll let you have these opt-outs as well, why not stay in San Diego? Like, who's not going to love playing there? He said as much. Like, why would I want to leave here unless someone's blowing the doors off? And it'll be fascinating to see what the Padres do from this point. Okay, because we've heard that the Padres and the Mets are talking and that they might be good trade partners with the needs for each. We've heard Nick Pavetta's name as someone who could be traded away, get a little money off. But if you're bringing Michael King back, it doesn't make all that much sense to me to then go turn around and trade one of your other starting pitchers. That was highly effective last year if you look at what Nick Pivetta did in San Diego. You got Joe Musgrove coming back. So, like, you look at that top 3, if you keep these guys, And we don't know what we're going to get from Musgrove yet. He's been out for a while now. But if those three guys are right, you're doing pretty well for yourself. Who knows what their plan is with Mason Miller, but you still have this dude back there in the bullpen. There's rumors that someone, whether it be the Padres or a team that wants to trade for him, are interested in turning him into a starter. But the Padres, man, like offensively, I think they're still going to have the same problem if nothing else changes. And that is they have some really good hitters in the lineup, but they're not slugging enough. And they haven't really changed much offensively. In fact, they may be losing stuff. Ryan O'Hearn doesn't feel like they're bringing him back. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard much about that being a reunion there. Fernando Tatis is just a fascinating player because there are spurts where he looks like that MVP caliber guy that we saw years back. And then there's spurts where it's like he can't hit a home run for a month or two. Like it just, what happened? Manny Machado's getting older, still a wonderful player. We talk about Wilson Contreras being that like veteran consistence. Who is more of a consistent veteran than Manny Machado? Like, I don't know if anybody is. Like, you know what you're getting from him. But again, you can at least be competitive with that roster as it is now if it's Michael King, Joe Musgrove if he's right, and Nick Pivetta if he can do what he did last year. You could do far worse for sure. So I don't know if you're going to catch the Dodgers, but can you make a playoff appearance? I think for sure. So I like it for the Padres. Good for them bringing him back.
So they're also taking a stab offensively with a KBO breakout. Sung-Mun Song was a 3-year, $13 million deal. Low-cost infield option. He's going to be filling some time at first, second, and third base, especially important, unsettled after Luis Arraez's departure. He's not going to be there next year. So, this is a low-risk thing. He's versatile. Slash 315, 387, 530, hit 26 bombs last year, 25 steals. So if he's able to, similar to the Murakami conversation where it's like, all right, if you can kind of transcend what you were doing in the KBO, like, Murakami in the NPB, like, I think we're going to have a conversation where, again, low risk, figure it out. It's a classic Padres move. And the bigger story is re-signing King and getting him there. But San Diego's clearly trying to stay competitive while threading the needle of a narrow payroll. And I think that is like the concern with the uncertainty with the ownership and what's going to be happening in the next couple of years. This is not a finished roster. It's really a strong signal for Padres fans that they're not going to fully back away for contention. So I think they're looking at it as like, okay, we're going to try to maybe be a West Coast Rays type of team here. We're going to piece everything together and find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder. We talk about trading from positions of strength to address a weakness, right? We talked about the Orioles doing that on this episode. We talked about the Pirates doing that earlier this episode. If you're the Padres and you're trying to compete and AJ Preller just never gives in, what would you say the Padres' biggest strength is for the last year or so?
Padres' biggest strength is probably the offense. I mean, looking at Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado and electricity that they bring to the ballpark, I think, or their bullpen, probably looking at
that's where I'm going
with Mason Miller. Like that's probably is what you really like to see. And trading from that probably feels like the obvious if you want to make something else better.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you have to trade Mason Miller. There's some other studs in that bullpen that are not talked about as much. Like it is a beast of a bullpen. Even before Mason Miller got there, people were saying how good that bullpen was. Obviously, sure. Robert Suarez is gone now, so one piece is already gone, but I still feel like that is their strength. So if you're looking for a little bop, I mean, they do match with the Mets a little bit in that respect. Mark Vientos, to me, stands out as a guy that like might not have a spot with this Mets starting lineup, has shown he can be a power threat. I know had a rough second year, but much better second half last year. If the Padres believe in Vientos at all, could be a little bit of a match there. I don't know if the Mets would do it just for bullpen help, but something to watch. Just thinking about the whole trading from their strength thing, it's kind of been a theme tonight. I wonder if they're trying to compete, how creative they get there. But for now, I like the moves here they made. I did not see it coming at all. I thought Michael King was as good as gone. For them to give him 3 for 75 was definitely a surprise. And AJ Preller, man, he just does not let this club give in. So it changes the narrative at least a little bit for now.
So we also have the Royals and the Phillies completing a 1-for-1 reliever swap. So they send left-hander Matt Strahm back to Kansas City in exchange for right-hander Jonathan Bolin. So the Royals, this is a reunion for them. They originally drafted Strahm back in 2012. So it's about 10 years later. He returns as this proven late-ending arm for them. And for the Phillies, I mean, he was pretty effective. Maybe one of the more effective relievers in all of baseball. 2.71 ERA over 212 innings pitched. across the last 3 seasons. He had the FIP is what's most impressive, 2.81 FIP as well, 3.01 Sierra. And among relievers, I mean, he has minimal starting experience. He ranks near the top of the league in workload and also run prevention. So he immediately is going to upgrade their bullpen. I mean, Carlos Estevez, he's back inning, and then Lucas Agreg is another guy that making that a nice trio there. And they're another team that's trying to compete in this division, recognizing that the Central is winnable. And you can kind of look at like Angel Zerpa as well. Like there's a lot of additional depth behind them that all of a sudden this bullpen is like, all right, this might be the most reliable in all the American League. So I like this for Kansas City. And for Philadelphia, this is about their flexibility and control. They clear $7.5 million in salary. Maybe this is a move and it makes sense for both teams. It's a win now move for KC. But for Philadelphia, I think this is like a longer term bet on, maybe the upside of Bolin, but it's also, we need some flexibility here in what we're going to do with the money.
Yeah, I mean, I continue just to love what the Royals have done for the last several years, like staying within their means, but being aggressive within their means. Too many teams out there kind of just rely on that excuse of like, oh, it's like outside of our means. We're really like, you could be a little more aggressive. The Royals are aggressive within their means, if that makes sense. And they just kind of, I feel like, try to open every door and see what's there. They don't just kind of look for the obvious stuff. So this is not a match I saw coming at all. But I just love what JJ Piccolo does with the Royals and the moves he makes. This is a great veteran piece, a guy that, I mean, as a Mets fan who watches a lot of Phillies baseball, Strom is constantly in big moments. They feel confident, or they felt confident bringing him in any situation. With men in scoring position last year, batters only hit 200 off him. So those are the kind of things you like to see. I mean, I heard a little rumor today that apparently he was really annoying in the clubhouse. Like maybe not like a bad guy, but just super annoying. I don't necessarily know what that means, but he was there for a while. So again, you hear this stuff in the offseason and you wonder how much of it is true and how much of it is just kind of a bunch of BS. But just another little move by the Royals that seems little now that could end up having a very, very big effect on their outcome. I mean, last year, 75.8% left on base percentage, not like standout for Strom. The year before, though, 82.3. Like, I just feel like he's one of those guys, the moment's not going to be too big. He's been there. He's done that. A little surprised the Phillies moved him. If there was a bullpen arm that I expected the Phillies maybe to look for a new home, kind of was looking at Orion Kerkering, even though once upon a time he was thought of as like the next coming of, right? Like with that moment and how it ended, I could have seen them like, yeah, the best thing for this kid is to get him out of Philadelphia. But I guess they're wrapping their arms around him and hoping for the best. And hopefully Philly fans, after a full offseason, are able to forgive him.
So looking at the depth chart for the Royals, I want to correct myself. Angel Zerpa was traded for Isaac Collins and Nick Mears.
Another move I loved. Yeah.
Yes, that happened in between our episodes as well. So this makes the trio of the bullpen. I think, Strom's going to be replacing Zerpa in the bullpen. So, and I think what the Philly likes about this Bolin stuff is they get 7 years of team control. And yes, that is valuable. And he's a low-cost option. And maybe he felt like it was expendable. And we have to remember, like, these guys are closer to these pitchers. They've been, we saw him being worked in big spots. They were trusting him, but there's a lot of wear and tear on the arm. Maybe they're like, well, something might fall off a cliff next year and it's not worth the salary he was getting. So let's move with the younger, more durable arm that might be cost effective. But all these pieces are the chess moves we see in the offseason, that these things are like the moves that are not the big Cody Bellinger, the Kyle Tuckers, the Juan Sotos of last year. These moves, to me, are the most important for championship teams. And I think a lot of people don't talk about them. They happen in the very quiet of the night, and maybe people miss it because they're doing other things. They're not following baseball. They're watching other sports. And all of a sudden you wake up and it's like Matt Strom's pitching some big innings in American League Central game. Like, I think people forget those things are important.
And a lot of those Central teams live on the margins too, where like non-superstar players like that are just kind of durable and go out there and pitch in big moments without all the fanfare end up making the difference with where you finish in that division. So yeah, you put it perfectly, man. I do think you'll turn on the TV in the middle of the summer and be like, oh man, Matt Strom's out there again in a big moment. I think you hit it on the head.
Yeah. So let's go with the Twitter polls and conversations here. You put it up there a few days ago at this point. You're asking who should play first base for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. And the choices were Bryce Harper, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, and Nick Kurtz. So the results of our USA first base poll were revealing. I'll let you kind of talk about not just who won, but why we think this person won.
Well, I mean, there's the hype machine. There is recency bias, I guess. But Nick Kurtz, one of our favorites, gets 41%, and that is the leader there in that poll. I was a little surprised at who took second place. Bryce Harper is a relatively close second, 32% after a down season. Pete Alonso, 15%. Matt Olson, who honestly I thought might win the poll, got 12%. So he comes up the rear there. And I mean, what we're looking at here is interesting because 3 out of the 4 choices, and by the way, from what I've read, all 4 are interested. If you find little quotes from over the last few months, they talk about like, talking to D-Row and seeing if the phone rings when it comes time. It's just interesting that is the one spot that seems to be not filled yet. You do have to remember, as they are built right now, they have Will Smith and Cal Raleigh, 2 catchers. There's a world where Will Smith could play first base. There is that world. Like if you played today, he'd play first base. But we'll see. Out of these 4 guys, you got 3 lefties and Pete Alonso as the only righty. So I was trying to look quickly at, who they have out there right now. They've got some switch hitters. You got a good amount of strong lefties. I mean, when you look at the righties, Bobby Witt, Aaron Judge, and the rest are kind of lefties or strong, switch hitters. So to a degree, there's a little bit of an argument for Pete being the power righty. But at the same time, man, it's hard. First of all, you can't argue against any of these dudes. I mean, if you're Bryce Harper and you're coming off a down year, I could kind of see you wanting to focus on the Phillies this year. And like, let's use the offseason to get back where I need to be. But at the same time, like how many more times might you have the option of playing for Team USA in a World Baseball Classic? This could potentially be the last one. Especially if Dave Dombrowski is right and you're never going to be elite again. So there's that. Matt Olson, I think I don't want to call him the safe choice, but kind of the safe choice. I think he's going to be steady. You know what you're going to get from Matt Olson. That's some really damn good stuff. Pete Alonso, like I said, he's the only right-handed power bat here. And Kurtz, if you want lightning in a bottle, dude, like that's electric, man. People would tune in for that. People love watching this guy from what he did in his first season with Sacramento. So I did put my vote in on my regular Twitter account for Kurtz as well. But I'm not going to be fooled here. I'd be excited for any one of these guys to be the first baseman for Team USA.
Yeah, and this is the byproduct of the World Baseball Classic meaning more and more every time we take the stage for it. We had this conversation here with Jim Allen about how much it means to Japanese culture and Japanese baseball fans, but it's starting to mean a lot for the United States baseball fans. We talk about Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens, and we're having all of a sudden that these guys are showing up with pride for country. And like, I think a lot of these guys always had a pride about wanting to be Captain America, quote unquote, when you had Mike Trout out there doing his thing, the Adam Jones catch. But year after year, we talk about the prestige and the value of things like this in competitions. All of a sudden, there's a lot of pressure about making the right choice. It's starting to lean a little bit like the World Cup selection, where there's a lot of pressure to put the right team together to win. And I think that it kind of speaks to how important and how prestigious this competition's been in really a short period of time, because it has not been around for that long for it to reach the highs that it's reached already, where we're having these conversations and the minutia of figuring out who's playing what position and someone being left out. There's a lot on the line here. And I think that's a really good thing for baseball.
Oh, it's a great thing, man. Like, you just hope that this roster stays together before the tournament gets here. There's no like little nagging injuries that pop up, because like it is the kind of thing where even like the tiniest thing pops up, you kind of have to bow out with like, the upcoming regular season coming there too. So it's fun, man. When we got those alerts on basically the same day or the same 24 hours, when it's like suddenly you had the one day where it's like, all right, Nolan McLean and Clay Holmes are going to fill out the Team USA pitching or starting staff, and you're kind of like, all right, that's kind of cool. McLean, young dude who does electric stuff. Clay Holmes, a little bit of a boring pick, but okay. And you thought the rotation was set, and then the next day, it's, oh, by the way, Tarek Skubal wants to play too. Oh, by the way, Logan Webb wants to play as well. And Mason Miller is going to come in and blow the doors off any team that is up in the 9th inning. Like, holy crap. Like, just so fun. I felt bad for David Bednar because he was in that news bag as well, and everyone was like, Logan Webb, Mason Miller, Tarek Skubal, but Bednar's in there too. And if he's right, you could do worse than having Bednar in the bullpen too. So you hit the nail on the head, man. Like it is so fun to see this thing become what we've all wanted it to become. And I'll be honest, as a Met fan, the last time it came around, I had a sour taste in my mouth a little bit at one point when Edwin Diaz went down in that celebration. I was like, man, I don't want my guys playing for this stuff anymore. I was in that camp. I was honestly in that camp. You can ask Buck Showalter today. He will tell you when he got that phone call. I believe Brandon Nimmo called him to tell him about the Diaz stuff and turn on the TV. He said he would never say it then, but he said he knew like their season was done at that point. And it was. They went on to have an awful, disappointing season, I think a year after winning like 101 games or something like that. And I was in that camp of like, I don't want my superstars playing in this tournament. But now you see what it's becoming, and you're like, you know what? Does it scare me that our youngster Nolan McLean is going to go play? Yeah, it scares me, but like, hell yeah, in the same regard. You got Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens out there as well. Like, I'm not going to cry about my players going to play. So I think it's awesome. The prestige is just up, way up.
Yeah, and I think as like hockey fans, we've had this conversation in Olympic years. We saw Four Nations be so successful last year in lieu of the All-Star game. There's something about this that, we talk about the NBA Cup, and I did a reel about it, about the in-season tournament and should the Knicks hang the banner. It's been a big discussion here in New York, and so many Knicks fans are pounding their chests of saying it's a consolation banner and whatever. But internationally, what these things mean, like the World Baseball Classic, like the FA Cup, these things that are in season or otherwise, there's a lot of pride that goes into playing. In a lot of ways, your home league, if you're a soccer player or a football player playing out in the international leagues, sometimes your biggest honor is playing internationally. And I think for a lot of these sports, they grow to a higher level when you have a pride of country that is behind it. And baseball, more than ever, has become a global sport. In a lot of ways, the sport that was invented in the United States, they're being dominated in a good way, where like Japan and Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico are putting out these star-laden teams. And that is a good thing for baseball, for us to go out there. And there's a reason why internationally, American football, you're really not able to have the competition, because internationally, like, they're trying to grow the game, but it's a largely an American sport. It speaks to really the reach of baseball that things like this exist, where I'm not saying I want the U.S. to lose, but when you have other countries reach highest of highs, where like it's a real big challenge to get out there and compete with them, it speaks to the worldly talent we have compiling in the best league in the world, and that's Major League Baseball.
No doubt about it, man. I just hope everyone's stepping their game up here. I hope that Great Britain changes their jersey, like doesn't write their name on with a Sharpie. Like that was, dude, it's comical. Like I look at those pictures now and I feel like someone photoshopped them to make them worse, but they actually were that bad. It's bad. But on I don't think I got your answer out of those four dudes: Harper, Olsen, Alonso, Kurtz. Who are you? If you're the manager, if you're in D-Rose spot, you know what the rest of the roster is. Who are you picking out of those four if you have your pick?
The upside of Nick Kurtz is like it's so alluring to me that I have to go that route. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these players. I mean, you get the leadership from the vets. Nick Kurtz, though, has a presence about him that I feel like he brings a certain prestige and leadership to the table as well. For a young kid, he carries himself like a vet. So I went with Kurtz because of the high level of pop you can get from him. But all these guys, you mentioned reliable. Boring would be too harsh of a word for like some of these guys, but you know what you're going to get. For Kurtz, the ceiling feels like it's way bigger than we even know.
No doubt about it, man. I mean, again, any of those guys, you're in really good hands. But Kurtz, it just seems like the guy made for the moment right now. I will say one other question. Have you seen speaking of Skubal a little bit with Team USA, have you seen like the last weekend or so, he feels like he's doing like a tour of Detroit? Have you seen this? Like he's at the Red Wings game. He's at the Lions game. He's putting on Instagram a picture of his home field in Detroit saying like, I miss you. Do you read anything into that? There's been a little bit of discussion on Twitter today. Like, what is this? Is this something, or is this just like a rich athlete enjoying his offseason?
I think it's kind of that. I don't know if there's any sort of ulterior motives, but it's hard to take the pulse of Detroit and their sports market. Like, are they soured by the Tarek Skubal stuff going on? It's not his fault that the Tigers are thinking about, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like it's a Tarek Skubal reflection, but maybe there's a public relations side of things of let's make right with the city and do things. But if I'm him, that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, you're a superstar in one of the greatest sports cities in the world. If you're Jahmyr Gibbs or you're Jared Goff, if you're, any of these guys that are going out there, and like, to me, I'd be at all these games. I'd be enjoying the sports culture, because Detroit, as much as I want the Knicks to beat the Pistons ass, I feel like they're the only team in the way to get to the finals this year, but I digress. I think there is a lot to be the immersive nature of a market like Detroit. It has to be something like, why not? Tara Skubal is becoming almost the face of baseball. It starts in your home market.
There is this theory out there, and I hope I'm not becoming a conspiracy theorist, but I kind of bought into it a little bit, of like, this is a Scott Boras situation, or like where you're advising your player to go like around Detroit and kind of make it look like you're showing your love for Detroit. So when you do get moved, there's not vitriol towards you. It's like, oh no, he loved Detroit. He wanted to be here. It's our team's fault. So almost like you said, kind of like a PR thing to kind of win the fans over before you get moved. Now, I don't know why they would care so much about that, but I don't know. There was a part of me where it's like, yeah, it's not too far-fetched in a way. But yeah, he's been like suddenly all over Michigan sports for the last week or so.
I think the only way that Tara Skubal gets vitriol from the Detroit fan base is if he says, I want to stay, don't trade me, like the John Tavares thing with the Islanders, and then you leave in free agency where they get nothing back. The best thing he could do is going to be open and say, there's a certain number I need to hit. If the front office doesn't get it, trade me so they can restock the pool. I think he'll be beloved in Detroit no matter what, even if he, outside of the situation I'm saying of like lying to the fan base and like saying, I want to be here on a discount, and then you get, you move elsewhere. I think people are not deluding themselves like that Scott Boras is going to take a discount or Tara Skubal. And honestly, if we're telling ourselves, nor should he. You know what I mean? Like, he should get paid market value for who he is. He's been absolutely dominant for the last few years. He's been the best pitcher in baseball outside of Paul Skeens. Get your money, dude. And I think a lot of the Detroit fans are smart and they understand that.
I think so. I think if he ended up in a Dodger uniform, it's going to be tough for them to not be at least a little bitter of like, that's.
But if you get the package back where you can look and be like, all right, we got this. I understand it's not. There's got to be a return, because if he leaves you holding the bag and said, I want to be here, I want to be involved with Detroit, and then you leave, that's how you become hated. I don't think there's a public relations piece of like, our team is a mid to small market team. We can't afford to pay the AAV that it's going to take to keep a guy like him. And I think a lot of smart Detroit fans too are probably thinking it would be detrimental to actually sign him for the long-term deal. Cause like, how are we going to figure out a way to construct a team around that money?
Yeah. It's a possibility. You might be right. By the way, I want to mention this before we get out of here. I got to give you credit. You're wearing the Green Bay Packers hat right now.
Yes.
After quite the miserable experience.
I was texting her in our football chat. I was like, I just hate sports. I had to take a lap. Dude, it was reminiscent of the 2014 NFC Championship. It was the exact game. Brandon Bostic, obviously different stakes, where the Packers had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. It was right there for them. But Romeo Doubs had the ball, and credit to Caleb Williams. I mean,
was that his star-making moment? Was that like his?
Feels like it was. I mean, what a throw! And like Chicago, and like, I'm not, I definitely hate the Bears. I really do. I don't like Ben Johnson. I don't like anything about them. But you got to give them credit, man. It was freezing out there. They were partying. It feels like a back-breaking loss. But when you lose Micah Parsons to a season-ending injury, Tucker Kraft you lost weeks ago. Jordan Love goes down to concussion, and give Malik Willis the fact that we were in the game with all those injuries, I'm not making excuses, but shout out to the Bears, what they did. And I feel like the Packers are going to take a miracle to even make the postseason and make a run. I just don't see it happening with the team as injured as they are, honestly.
I mean, it could be worse. You could be like me and headed for a Giants versus Raiders matchup, 2-13 teams next year. I mean, next week, just the matchup of the year, baby, for the number 1 pick. That's what I have my eyes on.
Well, the Giants will do their thing where they lose. I mean, they'll win. They'll win by losing.
But
they'll win by
losing.
Lose. Yeah.
No, they'll lose by winning is what you really mean.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yeah. They had the chance. Winning. I mean, honestly, what was the draft that they wound up missing out on when they famously lost? It was the Dexter Lawrence draft, right? Or
there's been a couple where like the Chase Young one years ago.
Oh, the Chase Young one. That was the one they lost. The last week. But there's been a few. Would Chase Young have changed the way this team has been trajectory?
Well, no. In retrospect, it wasn't that bad of one to miss on. But like, I think they threw my dad texted me anger. We as sport fans, man, we've gone through it. I'm a Notre Dame football fan, as my dad is. They don't even get included in the college playoff. And now we're watching these dog shit teams. Sorry if any listeners have teams that they're rooting
Well,
for. But
you
I
didn't know Tulane was going to be dog walked?
Tulane and JMU, like, and it's, to be honest, I'm more mad about like the Miami thing. Miami got in over Notre Dame because they beat Notre Dame in like week 2 or something. And since then, Notre Dame like tore it up. I don't know. We're getting off the path, but Notre Dame football, Giants football. I mean, the Knicks are holding us up a little bit. Rangers hockey is boring as
NBA
hell
Cup
this
chance,
year.
baby. The Emirates NBA Cup.
Mets are just blowing up their team. But anyway, shout out to Chicago. You got Caleb Williams, star-making moment one night. The next day you sign Munetaka Murakami. Maybe the Cubs do something a couple days from now. Well, they've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, for Caleb too, like just the raw skills of him, watching him, we've been waiting for it. There's no denying what he brings to the table. Like you see burst of it. And like you said before, sometimes it takes a breakthrough moment like that. I mean, what a goddamn throw he made in OT with the most pressure you can have against a team that's beat you 13 out of the last 14 games. Like this has been a bugaboo thing. And if they would have lost that game, they'd still be in okay shape to make the playoffs. But Ben Johnson made it his edict in the beginning of the season. It's going to be nice to beat Matt LaFleur twice. And if he would have lost to Malik Willis after Jordan Love gets knocked out in the end of the first quarter, I don't know if you come back from that. That's almost, I wouldn't say fireable offense, but like that's kind of close to it where you make it. I don't know. It felt like, and I don't want to say this because it feels like hyperbolic, but it felt like a changing of the guard a little bit in the NFC North of just like, oh shit, like this, it was a moment for them. Because if, it has as good as the Lions have been, they lost again today. It helped the Packers out big time. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers and what he did for us. But I don't know. There's a lot of good talent in that division. And for the Packers, it's going to be like that to keep serve. And I'm okay with the team we bring to the table every week. They just got to be healthy.
Well, I mean, not to go too deep into NFL, I'll put my last thought out here, but I think it's interesting this year because it feels so wide open. Obviously, the Eagles will be back in the mix, but this just feels like the most wide open year in football in a long, long time. I mean, you got like the Broncos at the top of the AFC, and then they get beat pretty easily by the Jaguars, who are a team no one's talked about and are like 11-4. Like there's examples of those kind of teams all over the place with like great records that no one's really like realized until now. Like, holy crap, these teams are actually pretty good. The Bears out of nowhere. Like it's the postseason or the playoffs are going to be, they should be fun, man. Like it's kind of, maybe we get this is a pretty high standard to get to, but maybe we get a NFL playoff that feels similar to the craziness of the Major League Baseball postseason we just saw.
For sure. I mean, when the Chiefs are knocked out, I'd be like the Dodgers not making the playoffs. That's what it is at this point.
I'll sign up for that.
So maybe we'll get the Dodgers not making the playoffs, but we're going to exit here as we get ready for the holiday season. We're recording on Sunday night, which is the 21st. So we will not give you guys an episode in between. We'll be back before the new year, I believe we'll get on here, but want to wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to those and maybe a happy Hanukkah out there if you're listening as well. I know Hanukkah's during this week as well, and just enjoy the time of your family. And, hopefully you guys are staying healthy because there's that the bubonic flu that's been going around Northeast over here. But all seriousness, enjoy the family, enjoy Christmas. It comes around once a year and special time of year.
Yeah, guys. I mean, yeah, like you said, hopefully stay healthy, enjoy yourself, knock back a few drinks, not too many. Keep the conversations to baseball at the family dinner table.
Talk to everybody about Murakami and what you think his assessment will be. What do they think about Murakami to the White Sox? Ask Grandpa. What does he think?
Yeah, keep it civil.
Keep it civil. What kind of conversation do you guys have in the family? You have an opportunity for conflict, Evan? Is that what you're saying?
No, I feel like a lot of people talk about the holidays of like, it's one of the uncles has a little bit too much to drink, says something that is very dividing. I'm not talking about my family specifically, but I feel like people talk about that all the time, like family arguments. Sure. Yeah. Gotta stay away from it.
The eggnog offers some debate. People want to debate once they get the liquid courage for sure. But
whiskey sours with my family. Have you ever had some whiskey sours? Frothy at the top. Oh, I do, put them in the blender. That's my shit right there.
What kind of whiskey are you using with that?
I don't know, man. I'm not picky.
All right. Well, I mean, whiskey sours are where it's at. Gin and tonics. I mean, like, I'm not an eggnog guy. I know people love eggnog, and every year I want to get into it. I'm just like, they look delicious, but like, not a dairy guy. Yeah,
I'm not a big dairy. Like, I actually like plenty of dairy by itself. But dairy and alcohol doesn't do it for me.
It feels like it's a disaster waiting to happen. But
yeah,
if you want to support us, guys, head over to Instagram and on X at Tablesetters Pod. We've been posting reels on the daily, trying our best to put content out in the in-between.
Exhausting.
exhausting. We're trying our best to keep you guys up to date and build the following. And thank you guys for the engagement. It feels like we're getting a lot more impressions on Instagram and people that are engaging with the content we're putting out. And we're trying our best to keep you guys entertained and keep baseball in the forefront of your mind during this off time. Even though there's a lot of news popping out, there's a lot of people that are going to wake up sometime late February or like, oh, what did my team do? And maybe go back in the archives and check out some of the episodes we've done. We had a really good conversation with Dominic Leone last week. Really good conversation and a lot of good meaty stuff on the table for the rest of this offseason. Other guests, we're going to continue giving episodes just like this one, and hopefully you guys are enjoying the ride. And if you can, Christmas present to Devin and I, leave it under the tree for us, a 5-star review. It would go a really long way. Takes 2 seconds. If you want to write one on Apple, that's great, but you can also just go on Spotify and listen to this episode and hit 5 stars. It would mean the world to us.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That really is all we want for Christmas. But yeah, man, we're about, when you really think about it, you look at the date, we're like 2 months away from spring training games, basically. So, I mean, time's going to fly. We all know that. It's almost here.
For sure. And again, we want to wish you guys a very happy holiday season, and we'll be back in just a little bit with episode 126 down the line. But until that time, we will talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.